So all the while, Diana is talking to her Aunt Sarah and her Aunt Sarah's partner, Emily Mather, both of whom raised her since she was about 8 years old. They're very worried about her, and for good reason, because she's kind of been with this vampire for about 2 weeks now, and they took her on a vampire hunting trip, and he went on a second one with her, and he didn't swallow her, which is pretty good, but I mean, if you're gonna keep going on vampire hunting trips, someone's gonna get eaten. And furthermore, they think that she has almost no powers, that she's never been able to do any sort of simple spell. And Diana admits that she's never been able to open a book or light a candle, and it's been like that ever since she was a child. But it never really mattered too much because she had distanced herself from magic after, again, her parents were brutally murdered because they were witches. So she gets a pass on that one, absolutely. Well, in Vampire House in France, we start to learn about Matthew's backstory. He had a wife and a child, both of whom died after a plague or some sort of disease. He possibly tried to take his life. We don't really know for sure, and that's when he was saved by Isabeau. He did not take too well to being a vampire. He's been one for vampire penance, and more importantly, blood rage, which means that you can't go near him when he's angry. You have to listen to him when he's angry, or he will eat your head. He actually had a sister, Louisa, who I think she caused some sort of riot in the New World, and she had her head cut off on a vampire plantation or something. So, but it means that he's completely, totally violent when the need arises. That's why he kills Jillian, probably, honestly. He's a complete hothead, and it's horrible. And Diana's known him for like 2 or 3 weeks, but the vampire romance is going strong despite all of these bad signs. And actually, what freaks Diana the hell out is that eventually he calls her his wife because of, their union and their blessing, and it's, kissing and stuff like that. And I think he takes blood from her. I could be wrong, though. No, that doesn't happen till the end. But, he calls her his wife. Like, they're just talking. He's like, oh, I won't let my wife do this. And Diana's like, what the fuck? I've known you for like 3 weeks. When did we get married? I mean, I just met you. Like, I mean, it's all crashing down. We're in vampire France, and I'm your vampire witch wife. And actually, that sounds pretty cool. So she's like, okay, we're married, basically. This is good. It's like one step removed from like Vegas shotgun wedding. It's like Magic France shotgun wedding without the actual wedding and the rings and Diana's permission. So that, again, wonderful relationship. Well, soon they get back Diana's test results, the test being given to her by Matthew at the lab. They were searching for her genetic markers and predispositions for certain powers, which they've mapped out in witches. And, surprise, surprise, Diana has almost all of them. Well, they find out later. She has more. They just didn't show up because she swallowed her twin brother in the womb, and so she has his powers as well. So yeah, she's got fire, she's got water. Let's just let her have every element, Just throw everything in there, because that's how you write a well-rounded character. Throw in every single power you can possibly find. The good news is she has a power for time traveling, and if anything brings in time traveling witches, I'm in for the ride. So you already know I got the second book. Well, that's when problems with the Covenant began. Remember how I told you they didn't take kindly to vampire witch romances? Diana, for once, is not the exception to this. Instead, they decide, okay, if we can't get her vampire marriage destroyed, they don't even know they're vampire married, by the way, they just think they're dating. Then we're probably gonna have to, maybe, I don't know, kill someone? Kidnap. Kidnap sounds good. So Diana's kind of outside. She's walking around, like, Vampire Mary, this is pretty nice, everything's going well. Oh my god! And she gets abducted by another witch. So the witch takes her to a cavern thing, and she just tortures Diana. Good, that's how you win her over. That's exactly how you get her secrets. No, I don't even understand these witches. Like, they don't ask nicely. They don't go like, hey, I'm sorry your parents were horrifically killed. Oh, by the way, it was by other witches. And they just completely destroy her. They just throw her across the room, then throw her into a giant pit with a bunch of ghosts inside, because that's how they get her secrets. So she's in there, and everyone's freaking out, you know. Isabeau and Matthew are on the phone with Sarah and Emily, and they're like, yeah, Diana's missing. Oops. Taken from Vampire Castle. She's gone. So they're searching for her, and eventually they realize to search for her in the cavern. Diana, however, is trying not to die. They're not coming fast enough for her, and she can't fly. She's stuck 50 feet down, 100 feet down, all by herself after she's been tortured. She starts to remember her mother, the stories her mother told her when she was a child. Apparently, Diana and Matthew's love has been foretold by her mother, who was a seer. And she realizes that her mother told her about this event, just through fairy tales at bedtime. And she hears about a little witch that's been spellbound to protect herself by people who loved her. So she has to take off the ribbons, you know, being the bindings. And so Diana kind of pulls out a ribbon, and all of a sudden, she's flying. And Matthew's there, and he catches her, whatever, and they leave. And that's when they decide, okay, she's been horrifically tortured. Let's go visit her family. Which, again, is fair. If I were her aunt, I would want her over ASAP. So they go to Massachusetts, I think, which is where she lives, or her family lives. And they have this amazing house, which is enchanted. So if it feels like someone's coming over for, like, dinner or something and they're going to stay the night, another room appears. It also takes their things. Like, it takes her, it takes someone's knitting. Like, if you're going to steal something, don't steal knitting, you know? Like, keep the gold in there. Just keep the gold. So they go, and Sarah helps heal her. And they realize, okay, Diana can't stay. Matthew can't stay. They're not safe in the present. Luckily, Diana has the convenient power of time traveling, so they can figure this all out. Well, as they're planning, because if you're going to time travel, you have to time travel right. You have to have a specific object linking you to the time you're going to. Traveling to the future is much harder, by the way, so you also have something. It helps if you have something linking you, but, you know, not very easy task. Diana also finds out that she's been time traveling already when she was a child, but she just doesn't remember it. And her father, too, was a time walker, like she is. So they start planning it out, getting the things they need, and that's when Matthew's Damon friend Hamish comes over. And he is followed by Miriam and Marcus, who are Matthew's son, Marcus being a son found in this Revolutionary War, and Miriam, I think, is a vampire who is vampire married to one of his brothers on Isabeau's husband's side. Sorry, it's really confusing genealogy sometimes. And they're then followed by two other daemons who are Nathaniel and Sophie, I believe. Sophie's actually expecting a baby, and the baby is going to be a witch, which is pretty fascinating because they don't know how daemons are born, and they didn't know that a witch could be born to them because her parents were actually witches, which is a bit of an anomaly, so they want to study that. Anyway, they realize that the people who formed the covenant, there are 3 witches, 3 vampires, 3 daemons, and surprise, that's the arrangement there. So they kind of form their own order of a sort, and that's when they start getting ready for the time traveling trip. They decide that around Halloween, actually exactly on Halloween. Emily and Sarah are going to go leave on an RV trip, and eventually they're going to end up in France with Isabeau. Nathaniel and Sophie, I think, are going to join them as well at the, Septors or whatever it's called, the vampire home. And so are Miriam and Marcus. So Diana and Matthew find the objects they need. The house actually gives them some stuff because the house is haunted by Diana's old relatives, one of them being Bridget Bishop, who, again, Salem times, killed. So they have everything they need. They take it. And they travel in time. But that's the next book. I should have eaten my twin in the womb.